This week we'll delve into Chapter 20. So right away on Monday, you should first go after the terms quiz. The terms are split in two because there's more this time. There's 16 and there's a bonus kicker. Once you have the terms done, remember you can try that twice in case you mess up. You are then ready to begin Chapter 20 book questions. We have textbook pages here, but then we have a kind of condensed version of textbook pages for slides 2 and 3, which you'll see. So if I need to square out and double tap to wake up the slides for editing. Then open link to a split page with the textbook. And I can go back and split with my slides. There we go. So section 1 is about land biomes. So chapter 20 is about biomes in general. And we're going to look on the map here. And what biome do we live in? Well, here we are in Eastern America. That's dark green, so you would read the legend to figure out what dark green was. And you're going to name 3 other places where that exists. So you need to look at the map and find 3 other places where that exists. You can either name a country or a region of a continent. So for instance, there's none of the dark green down here in Africa, but if it was down here at the tip, I would say Southern Africa. So you need to say like Central, Southern, Northern, Eastern, Western parts of continents, or name actual parts of countries. So it's some over there, some down here. There's a couple of places. There's more than 3 places where our biome exists. We skip asking questions about our biome, and we go to the next biome, the Coniferous Forest, which tend to be in more northern places. Why many plants don't grow there, underneath them, you can read in the paragraph, but also in the pictures. The pictures can be very helpful. And what are pine needles adapted to do? There you go. Then we have a question about the grasslands. So we skip tropical forests. We'll get back to them later. And we have 2 types of grasslands. Temperate grasslands, which would be like the American prairies, and the savanna, which is a tropical grassland. What are 2 differences between them? Well, we can either read the boxes about temperature and rainfall that they both have, or we can read the paragraphs. But it basically boils down to what does savanna have that the temperate grassland is lacking? There's definitely more than 2 answers that are possible here. For the desert, we're going to describe a plant and animal adaptation to survive. So you can look at the picture and read about plant traits that help them survive or animal traits that help them survive. But you can also read in the paragraphs and get some other answers. So we need 1 plant and 1 animal, but not just the name of them, their traits, an adaptation or change in their bodies that helps them survive in the desert. And then lastly, we get to tundra. So tundra have this thing called permafrost. And alpine tundra is really special. So you need to figure out what it means to be alpine tundra. And then the permafrost, permanently frozen ground, one of our vocab words, messes up the water cycle, the traditional water cycle of raining and draining away into the ocean and evaporating and raining again doesn't happen. So we need to say how that permafrost changes the water cycle in the tundra. Now, slides 2 and 3 are also about section 1, but we're going to graph them, and they have been graphed. Here we have, for this slide 2, the land temperatures, and we have biomes A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Now, these biomes are not in any particular order, not the same order as the book, but you have to see if you can figure out what they were, and you get hints. So biomes B, D, and G are all forest. Which one is the temperate forest, and how can you tell? So there's 2 ways to do this. We can scroll back through. Okay, so here's the tropical forest, and we can look at its temperatures. And here's the coniferous forest, and we can look at its temperatures. And here's the temperate forest, and we can look at its temperatures. And we know that B, D, and G are all forests. So we look at their columns and see if we can identify which one was the temperate forest, and then explain how we could tell. That's hard going back and forth between the book pages. So to make this a little easier, I created this document, which is all the temperature and rainfall information for all 7 biomes, all in one place. So that should make it easier to do. So right there, it's a 1 out of 3 chance. B, D, and G are all forest. Here it's a 50-50 chance. C and E are both grasslands. Which one is the savanna, and how can you tell? So I would need to compare savanna and temperate grasslands, and I could check their temperatures and see which one matched the savanna. And then what 2 biomes have the most extreme temperatures, and what are their names? So we would look at the graph, and extreme temperatures means the craziest highs or craziest lows, the biggest changes. And so there are 2 that stand out, and you have to be able to name which 2 they are. And through the process of elimination, if B, D, and G were forests, and C and D were grasslands, there's only really 2 biomes left anyway, so hopefully that's a little bit easier. Slide 3, we continue, but this time it's a rainfall graph. Which 2 biomes receive the least rainfall, and what are their names? So we have to look for the shortest 2 and figure out which ones they are. And then what does it mean that biome E and F go all the way to the bottom of the graph? Why are E and F going all the way down to the bottom of the graph? And so we could figure out what those biomes were, but also what it means in numbers that they go down to the bottom. So on Tuesday, we have 2 slides, but the same number of questions, 5 questions, because it was hard to do the graphs and have them on one slide. Wednesday, we'll be reviewing other things and introducing our GIM kit, but Thursday, we will start slide 4, section 2. So I'm going to reopen the book link. And now we're in the ocean, the marine ecosystems. And so phytoplankton, where can they be found? Well, here they are referenced, and I need a location in the water column. Where in the water can they be found? And then why is the intertidal zone above water part of the day? Well, I have different zones on the next page. So A in the picture is the intertidal zone, and A up here is the intertidal zone. So when we talk about zones of the ocean, we can look at the paragraph or the picture to find answers. Question 12 is about the Narratic zone and the Oceanic zone. So Narratic zone is B, and there it is again. And the Oceanic zone is C. What's tricky about the Oceanic zone is knowing the boundary between the 2. And so here in C, they talk about something right away, and here in B at the end, they talk about something. That thing they're both talking about in these paragraphs is the boundary between the 2. And then in the depths, the benthic zone, the bottom, what do organisms eat? So we can again read the paragraph or read the caption. And then what are thermal vents? So thermal vents, we're going to need to read in here. What is a thermal vent? It's in italics because it's kind of a vocab word, and you're going to describe what that means. How old can corals be? Now we're looking at specific biomes or specific habitats within the marine ecosystem. So in a coral reef, how old can corals be? Well, there's the coral paragraph. And then what does a sargassum algae form in the Sargasso Sea? So we have this ocean region in the North Atlantic named after an algae. And this algae does something strange and builds or makes something. Polar waters just means near the North and South Pole. Why are they so rich in nutrients? And so you can read about that. And then estuaries are where rivers mix into the oceans. And we need to know why the level of salt changes. In the ocean, the level of salt is constant. And in freshwater systems, the level of salt is relatively constant. But in an estuary, it goes back and forth, up and down. That's slide 4. Slide 5, Friday's work, is about freshwater ecosystems. And so when 2 moving bodies of water join, how do you know which one is the tributary? So we're going to have to read about that. And tributary is kind of a vocab word. I'm looking for it. Oh, there it is, right there. And so we have a sentence that kind of, a backwards definition that tells you which of the 2 is a tributary and which is not. How do organisms avoid being swept away in fast streams? So that's fast-moving water paragraph. And what does it mean for rivers to meander? So we need the definition of meander, and there it is in italics. We also have a video we'll watch about that. Now, lakes have boundaries just like oceans have boundaries. And what is the boundary between the open and deep water zone? So life at the top is the open water zone, and then life in the deep is the deep water zone. You have to read between these two to figure out how we know the difference. The littoral zone is the area right next to shore, next to land. So land and littoral, the letter L, are how I remember that. Then we get to wetlands. How do wetlands help to control flooding? This is a very important thing. So wetlands helping to control flooding is in here. And then what is the difference between a swamp and a marsh? Well, there's a marsh and there's a swamp. So we can find the simple difference between the two. There are other more specific types of wetlands, but we don't need to get into that here. As always, we have about a week to do it, and there's a few extra days tagged on at the end in case you need that extra time. But also, our next project for Chapter 20 is going to be to make a quick 2-slide slideshow giving 5 simple facts about a very specific habitat somewhere on the planet. So we'll probably sign up for those on Monday the 9th of May, and we'll probably start researching on the 11th. As always, email me if you have questions or talk to me in class.